Hello, Professor. So before getting into the actual three interviews that'll be attached post this first excerpt, I just wanted to give the general reflection so you don't have to waste your time watching all the interviews and then you could have them afterward because I know there's that 5 to 10 minute limit. So I'll just put the interviews at the end and then give you my summation of what I thought about it right now. So just getting into it, I actually wrote it down. So through these interviews, I learned that at least from the interviewee's perspective, that the effects of systematic racial inequality and oppression are at levels so minimal that they go unnoticed. So across the board, all three interviewees could not think of a situation or a scenario that they believed they were treated differently or put into an inequitable position directly resultant of their race. And you'll see that in the interviews as well. This is very heartwarming for me to hear, of course, because you don't want to see that happening. But all three have also stated that this reality is probably due to the nature of the Hawaiian Islands in general, and that such grace and love basically applies to everyone. So the answers stated by these interviewees were relatively similar to each other, and the general sentiments shared by most of the people I've interacted with. So like everybody's feeling the same way basically during the pandemic. What they are feeling is felt by pretty much everyone. And in Dion's own words, Dion is the second person that I'm going to be interviewing. He's in high school. In his own words, he said, us being Filipino doesn't have anything to do with how we're treated during the pandemic. And the question that I posed almost like offends. They're like, why would me being Filipino have anything to do with the way I'm treated? You know, like, it's not expected for that to be a thing anymore, at least, or here on the island. So I interviewed Joe, Dion, and JV. Joe and JV are brothers. They're all three of my friends, and they've come over plenty of times to my house, and I know them quite well. But moving on, Joe is an independently living 18-year-old. He lives by himself. And Dion is a 17-year-old high school dependent. And JV is Joe's 19-year-old brother who also lives by themselves. They both live independently out of the stewardship of their parents. However, they unanimously decided that the level of hardships that they are currently enduring has nothing to do with their race as Filipinos. So just getting more deeper into it, the pandemic has taken a toll on them all mentally, though, with the inability to socialize with friends. That was like one of the biggest themes across the board. They also lost considerable and noticeable amounts of motivation to exercise. So I realized that this lack of motivation and diminished levels of exercise can actually lead to many other problems, both physically and mentally, in a sort of cascading effect. So luckily, we as a friend group actually all gather at my house and have been able to responsively pull together and keep each other from falling apart. We kind of have our own little COVID negative bubble, so that we only hang out with each other and are able to basically keep each other in good spirits. We have also kept each other on track and as productive as possible. So basically, they're looking for a gym and be like, hey, man, I'm gaining a lot of weight. I'm kind of getting sad about it. So I actually built a rack in my garage and as a solution, and we've all been able to lift weights and gain some weight through that way. So really we're pulling together as a community. So far as to extend employment opportunities to each other, actually, you'll find that JV, the oldest of the interviewees, actually got Dion a job because he was having trouble during the pandemic looking for one. So we just turned internally towards our internal little bubble, and we're able to help each other out that way as well. So moving forward, each interviewee's educational path has also been drastically affected by the pandemic. Both Joe and JV, the brothers, access to HEC, the trade school, had been denied due to the limited number of students eligible to enroll in light of the pandemic. So they couldn't have as many kids in the classrooms, I guess, or online now. But for some reason, they were put on a wait list and told to reapply because of restrictions due to the pandemic and COVID. But despite these challenges, they look forward to getting up and running again in the future. They're really excited to progress through the levels of society. As you'll come to find out, 18 and 19-year-olds living independently in Hawaii without their parents is really impressive. So these guys have like a work ethic that I've never really seen before. So just moving on to Dion, he has also continued his schooling over the internet from home, just like most other high schoolers and middle schoolers. But the switch to online learning was easy to recover from what he says. But it also posed a lot of social problems in not being able to gather with your friends like normally, which again is faced across the board. And like they said, has nothing to do with them being Filipino. Um, I have witnessed the same situation in my own high school age brother as well. Basically, he likes the switch, don't have to go to school, but the lack of seeing your friends really gets on you. So a lot of common themes there. I also noticed a common theme of fear of the government. This was like kind of a big deal and emphasized in a lot of the interviews. More so than the virus itself, almost. All three that were interviewed were worried about following the laws of the land in the face of endlessly changing rules, and having to worry about all the rules and walking on eggshells and whatnot with what you can and cannot do has really brought them a great level of stress. And I've seen this stress myself and also experienced it. I've personally felt the same way and seen all of my friends, like literally across the board, feel nervous or anxious to even go outside or do something that we're not sure whether is allowed or not. Kind of have to maneuver around the new rules and regulations that Ige and Caldwell add endlessly to this like scroll of addendums, which is understandable, but it seems like there needs to be a continuity between the way that they act and direct it more towards the people. Dion specifically has a friend that is currently recovering from the virus. This is in terms of their actual health and whether their familial and social relations have been, or how they have been. So Dion had a friend that is currently recovering from the virus, and then the two brothers, Joe and JV, had an auntie living in Vegas who has now fully recovered. But those are the only two people they know that they were affected by COVID. And thankfully, they're all doing pretty okay. The one that is recovering is recovering well, but not fully there yet. Between the two brothers, has been hard to see their large extended family all at once, like Filipino like family party kind stuff. This has stressed familial ties in a previously unknown way. So pre-pandemic, they would have regular family parties in which aunties, uncles, cousins, nephews, all your Hanai people, would be able to gather in unison and regularly commune together, right? Like weekly, whether it be bi-monthly, whatever it is. But the inability to get together has been hard for them. But it's also surprisingly added another benefit in that they've been able to come closer than ever via phone calls and FaceTime, which are more frequent than previously had been done. So they're calling each other and staying in contact through their phone a lot more, which both JV and Joe said was a really positive effect and kind of bringing their family together over the airwaves. So their families take care of each other basically and regularly check in, which is very important, which I'll talk about later. But in Dion's case, this pandemic has made the household tension worse. He kind of grew up in an unhappy home and an unhappy household, and that was pre-pandemic and is basically intensified by the forcing of each family member in each other's space. Basically, you're forcibly cramming and long durations in the same household, and that is usually a cause for building tension, especially if pre-pandemic, house arrest, basically, they weren't already on good familial ties, which is unfortunate. I'll continue to pray for that. But overall, these interviews showed me just how important it is to be there for your friends and family, and the necessity to actively check in on them. No one is not suffering in some way, shape, or form, although some are more protected from the suffering than others. For the example, because Dion is under the general care and financial protection of his parents, the largest impact that he could reflect on was really the facet of education and socialization. Where on the other hand, JV and Joe were both independents and have to make money on their own and support themselves. Their largest struggles were in that financial sector, especially in the instability of Hawaii's leadership decisions and the general direction of our commerce sector, like how jobs are doing, especially with tourism. They're both working essential businesses and food, so how they act and the hours that they get at work are directly resultant of who's allowed to go out and eat, basically. So that changes as the rules of Ige and Caldwell do. So unfortunately, this fluctuation in the financial sector of their lives created a ripple effect in other facets of their lives, such as food and recreational consumption. Like I said before, like some days they eat good, some weeks they have to ration off. Like many citizens today, however, all three have been able to adapt, improvise, and overcome. So all three are Filipino, but in their own words, their difference in suffrage is a resultant of their specific circumstances and life choices, not their race, which was really interesting that they said it themselves, and they are Filipinos. But they do not have to face challenges or overcome trials and tribulations that others of a different race do not have to deal with somewhere or somehow. And saying all this, I do know that in certain areas there are underlying effects that are resultant of specific oppressing systems that have been put in place in the past and whose remnants continue today and are still felt today. But I do wholeheartedly believe, however, that the effects of these systems have become quite minute, and that these three interviewees are proof of that, even in some small way. At the end of the day, each of the three individuals sees themselves as leaders of their own life, and they are uninhibited by the transgressions of racists of the past. I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to do this project. I actually really learned a lot, and it was really reflective and helped me connect to all the other material and see just how much progress we have made. And in saying that, I'm going to attach the actual interviews after this I don't know if you'll want to watch them or not. I want to save you as much time as possible. That's why I made the synopsis in the front, but I will attach them just so that you have them. But overall, thank you for everything. I appreciate the opportunity.